Hey everybody, I am Missy.
And I'm April.
And welcome to Sheela Na Gig! Awesome, we're so happy that you're here with us. Each week we present and explore our own Sheela Na Gig, a woman whose strength and perseverance led her to greatness, who empowers us and inspires us, and maybe even one who is never recognized or never acknowledged, or maybe some dude got the acknowledgement.
That's been known to happen.
That has been known to happen, yeah. So we just want to bring these women to the forefront and share them with you and share their stories with you. So we are delighted that you are here today. And I love it because April's chewing gum.
Now, I do chew gum like a cow, and I crack, and I'm going to refrain.
Okay.
I'm going to not crack my gum and chew like
it's
a
very,
cow.
I think it's very New York of you, I know. like today's podcast, go ahead.
Yeah, today's podcast brought from you from Santa Clarita, courtesy long distance of New York City, is April and the chewing gum.
Yeah.
All right.
That's right. And April's actually going to be chatting with us today. She's the one who's going to tell us about our Sheela. But how are you?
I'm good. I'm well. How about yourself?
I'm good. My daughter and I went to San Francisco, and that was really lovely. And I saw my high school friends and my uncle, and it was really good. I hadn't been up there in a long time. It's such a great city.
It is. I love San Francisco.
I know. Me too.
Kind of reminds me of New York.
Yeah. Well, it's so much more of it is kind of like an East Coast city, in that it's a real city. There's you know what I mean? You feel like you're in a city, whereas in LA, it's not, I'm not dissing LA, but it's just a different kind of city.
Definitely a different vibe.
And it does feel, it does have that East Coast city sort of feel to it. So,
it does.
Yeah, Ellery, my daughter, was very excited to go. And it was a girls' trip.
Nice.
So, we drove, and she turned me on to a lot of new music. And
Very good.
Yeah, we had a good time.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I love
We also
that.
listen to old-time radio sometimes. Have you ever listened to those old-time radio mystery shows?
So old-time radio is probably when I was a young person. How old time are we talking?
But they're so good. They're so good. Yeah. But anyway, April, I am very excited because I know who you're going to talk about, but I really know very little about them. So please.
Well, giving credit where it's due, we were talking about coming up with our Sheelas, and we have different methods of finding our Sheelas. And I was complaining to Missy that she always comes up with the best Sheelas.
Oh.
And mine, not that I'm dishing on mine, I love my Sheelas, but they're maybe a little more serious. Missy's got the glitz and the raunch and,
The glitz and the raunch. Missy's got the glitz and the raunch.
Glitz and the raunch. And I just get into these, browy, amazing women that I admire.
Did you say browy?
Kind of, a little bit.
Browy, like highbrow?
Highbrow,
browy. I like browy.
Browy? Did I make that up?
I don't know if you did.
I might have.
You might have, but I like the word, and I knew exactly what you meant by it.
Yeah, kind of highbrowy,
and
women.
nobody that you have done is to be overlooked. You've done
they're
great
badasses.
Sheelas. Yeah, but
Missy did suggest the next Sheela. She sort of came upon them, and before she had a chance to really read about them, she gave them to me.
Yeah, I think, with all due credit now, I think Dana, our editor, may have. It might have been Dana. I think it was Dana that told me about these gals.
Well, she wasn't kidding.
Yeah.
But we're actually going to start off, instead of talking about all of the gals, we're going to start off with the honcho gal.
The honcho gal.
The honcho gal. And I'm going to do a disclaimer right away because my Russian may be a little off point.
Okay.
So if I'm mispronouncing anything, I really apologize. Not really sure how we get confirmation on certain enunciations.
That's true. Did you have any family in Russia?
I did.
That's what I thought.
Yes, I think I have some of this, but I'm afraid I'm going to butcher.
No,
some
you're
as well.
okay. And
Okay.
who are we going to talk about?
We're going to start with Marina Ryskova.
Marina
Ryskova, and she was a badass woman pilot in Russia.
Okay.
And she was famed for setting record-breaking long-distance flights The last one that really brought her to fame ended with her surviving alone for 10 days in the Siberian taiga. I may be mispronouncing that, but it means wilderness.
Okay.
She was just in the wilderness all that time and survived.
For how long did you say?
10 days.
Oh my gosh. That's
And
crazy.
she made quite a name for herself. But she was also the first navigator of the Soviet Air Force.
Ooh.
And she personally knew Joseph Stalin.
Wow.
And he really liked her and respected her. So Ryskova, when World War II broke out, she started getting all these letters from female navigators who wanted to join a battalion and join the cause, in part to sort of avenge their lost brothers and husbands and their communities. I mean, women were very moved by what was happening
World War II,
during World War II.
Okay.
And she asked Marina Ryskova to basically use her influence to form an all-women's Air Force battalion.
Ooh. Ooh.
So it's unclear to me, because it's written a little arbitrarily,
Okay.
whether Joseph Stalin... I think she went to Joseph Stalin and asked him if she could do that. But whether she asked or it was his idea, which I find hard to believe without a little prompting, in October of 1941, he did order her to create 3 female-only air squads. Now, 2 of them ended up becoming mixed gender, but the 588th Night Bomber Regiment stayed exclusively women throughout the war and became known as, get ready for it, the Night Witches. Woo! And they are our collective Sheelas today.
Oh my God, the Night Witches. I love the name.
Well, there's a story behind the name. That name
okay.
wasn't just that.
Because you know
name,
sometimes witches.
Yeah.
Oh, she's a witch. Like, it's a derogatory term that people use toward women sometimes. And obviously it was a different time.
No. It was meant to be derogatory.
Okay.
Only these
Go on.
women you're getting off track. But although it was given to them in a derogatory way, these women embraced it, celebrated it, and wore it with pride.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. I like that.
So when Maria Ryskova was granted the approval or given the orders to start this regiment, she literally had thousands of applications. And she had to select about 400 women to staff each of these 3 units, because originally there were 3 units.
Wow.
And most of the women who were selected were literally between the ages of 17 and 26. And they had just a few months to go to this training camp in Engels. It was a town north of Stalingrad called Engels.
Okay.
And they had just a very short period to learn what most fighter pilots would learn over years. Like, just condensed version, really learn what they're doing.
Wow.
Yeah. Yep.
But they're women. They can do it.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And they became proficient as not just in flying these planes, but in being ground crews and maintaining the aircrafts. Okay. So there were a lot of things they had to do.
So a lot of different jobs available.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if that wasn't challenging enough, these women faced a few more little barriers.
I would imagine.
One was, as all female crews, they were taken less seriously than their Russian compatriots. Mm-hmm. They were considered little girls, less than, and so their uniforms were cast off uniforms by men, so they were men's clothing that they had to wear. And they had to fill their oversized boots. They had to stuff them with their bedding in order to be able to not walk out of their boots, because the clothes didn't fit.
Whoa.
They faced a tremendous amount of sexual harassment daily. And these women, instead of getting angry or feeling victimized, they felt that environment made them stronger. Like, it just emboldened them to try harder, fight harder.
The silver lining of being sexually harassed.
Yeah, exactly. You harass me, I'm just more on my game. But wait, there's more. Because these women were not only sexually harassed and belittled and not given the proper uniforms to wear, they also sort of weren't given the best planes to fly. They couldn't put parachutes in the planes one reason was because they lacked the funds to get parachutes. And the second
Wait,
is...
so the parachutes went to the men, but not to the women.
Not to these women. And also because the planes were so feeble and old, they had weight limits that couldn't allow for any extra baggage. So no parachutes.
Unbelievable.
The planes were typically, they were crop duster planes from the 1920s. And they were only historically used in the military for training purposes. They were never, ever meant to see combat. The planes were mostly made of canvas and plywood. And they were only two-person planes. Now, I'm going to try to say what the planes were called, but if anybody knows how to pronounce this, they may be laughing at me. Polkarpov Pro 2. Polkarpov Pro 2. Let's just say there were two people planes.
Yeah. I'm really not even going to try to repeat that back to you.
And they were considered mostly to be a death wish if you're going to use them in combat. Like that, was considered suicide to ride them for combat. But these were the planes that...
So they're like these two-person crop duster, very small, dilapidated planes.
Yes, that you couldn't even bail out of because you weren't allowed to take a parachute.
Wow. Well, that's a lot of commitment on their part because, I might be excited at first, but after I found out like that would be my plane, I might back out.
Well, these women did not back out. They were badasses. They were really tough. And the planes could only carry 2 bombs at a time, one under each wing, and they were on missions to bomb like up to 18, bombs a night. So the way that they did it was that they set up 40 two-person crews at night, and each would execute between 8 and 18 missions, flying back and forth to rearm in these really feeble, poor. But I'm not done talking about.
This is crazy.
No, it's crazier. This is just the beginning of crazy.
Oh my gosh, how could it get worse? I don't know.
Okay. So in order to bomb the Germans, they had to fly at very low altitudes, and in order to not be seen, they had to do it in pitch black of the night, which had the advantage of surprising the German opponents, the German enemies. So 3 planes would go out, and 2 would serve as decoy distractions. They would have flares and kind of create a spectacle. And while the Germans were going to shoot down those 2 decoy planes, the 3rd plane would fly very, very low, turn off its engine so it couldn't be heard, and you're making the right sound, and then they would drop the bomb. So getting back up was always described as a finger-crossed mission because the odds of getting that plane to just sort of regroup and work its way back up was a real finger-crossing, I hope this works kind of thing.
Gosh, they're kind of like kamikaze pilots.
Kind of like kamikaze pilots. And they had to keep doing this multiple times a night. All 3 planes would do this would take turns dropping bombs, and then they would have to go back and reload and get more bombs.
It's insane. I don't want to jump ahead, but I want to know how many of them survived this, because this sounds crazy.
Well, I'm going to give you a little spoiler alert. Although there were losses, they did, not everybody made it. Surprisingly little, considering the fact that they were fighting against so many odds.
Wow.
When confronted with enemy fire, the pilots did what anyone piloting a plane made of plywood would do. They ducked. They got really good at ducking their planes. And there was a little asset to the fact that these planes were so flimsy. And that was the maximum speed was lower than the speed of the Nazi plane. So it kind of gave them the opportunity to
give them a little bit of an advantage.
To duck, and avoid getting plummeted.
Wow.
So these pilots could maneuver their craft with much more agility than amazingly their attackers. And that's one of the reasons why this particular regiment was so effective in bombing the crap out of the Nazis. So
Dang.
On one occasion, the outnumbered Soviets downed 2 Nazi planes before one of their own lost its wing to enemy fire. the pilot bailed out and landed in a field, and the people on the ground who witnessed the skirmish rushed over to the stranded pilot, and they offered the pilot vodka because the pilot, these were friendly allies, so they offered the pilot vodka.
Which would be exactly what you would want in that situation, I would think.
Except for our brave Sheela refused the vodka because it turned out the lad wasn't a lad, it was a female, and she wasn't a drinker.
Wow. And she was Russian? I shouldn't say that.
She
That's yeah.
Well, she turned it down.
She turned it down.
Yeah, and so she was noted for that brave bail on the plane and turning down the vodka.
And turning down vodka at the same time. Wow.
So the planes, I mentioned that they couldn't have any parachutes. They also had no radios, no other artillery, and no other radar.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
This just goes from bad to worse. Like, I'm shocked.
They used maps, compasses, rulers, flashlights, pencils, and, wait for it, stopwatches. And that was how they maneuvered. The other thing is because they had to do this at night, when the temperatures dropped significantly, they also risked frostbite because they were often traveling in freezing temperatures. And it was so cold that if you touched the wrong part of the plane in that kind of cold, it could tear the women's bare skin.
Oh, God.
So there were 3 commandments the night witches followed, and the first was, be proud you are a woman.
Oh,
In their downtime, these heroic flyers did things like needlework and patchwork. They decorated their planes and they loved to dance. They even put the pencils they used for their navigation as double duty, putting on eyeliner.
Wow.
So they were women and they were proud to be women. They withstood a lot of harassment. They certainly weren't treated inequitably. They were given inferior equipment and so forth.
Or no equipment for that matter.
Or none. Yeah, bail your plane at your own risk. But they just persevered. They kept going.
Wow.
The main goal of the 588th was to disorient the sleep-deprived enemy, and soon after the beginning of their runs, it became clear that this was a really successful tactic. They were bombing their enemies and getting out undetected. And when the Nazis were thrown off and realizing that there was this regiment that was really getting the upper hand, they found out the greatest indignity of them all, that it was all women regiment. Like, how horrible was that? So remember when I told you that when they were going to drop the bomb, they flew low and turned off their engines? Yeah. And you made a sound.
Yes.
What was that sound? Do you remember it?
I think it was just astonishment. What was it?
Yeah, there was like this.
But I wasn't even trying to make this. I just was astonished. And I was like, oh my God.
Well, interestingly enough, their planes made that sound when the engine was turned off.
Yeah.
And so the Nazis began to associate that sound with these women, because these women were dropping those bombs, and that was how they became known as the Night Witches. They flew in the night, and their planes sounded like the broomstick risking shh when you sweep.
Okay.
Yep.
I'm sure it had nothing to do with them being women, that they were referred to as witches.
Oh, they were pretty pissed that they were women. No, that was a huge humiliation. In fact...
Because if they were men and they sounded like swishing broomsticks...
Yeah.
I don't know.
Warlocks?
Warlocks?
Probably not.
I don't know.
But...
Warlocks probably play... I don't think warlocks play... Sorry.
No,
okay.
they don't. I don't think so.
Okay.
But anyway, the Night Witches became so feared and hated by the Germans that any German airman who actually dared to down a Night Witch plane, which occasionally did happen, was automatically awarded the prestigious German Iron Cross Medal. That's how feared and hated these women were.
Wow.
Instant medal.
Wow.
And despite, their clear aptitude and success, they really wore that name, Night Witches, with pride. And they continued, even with that, to receive a ton of criticism and contempt from many of their male Soviet military compatriots throughout the entire war. And they were arguably, I think it's fair to say, never given the appreciation and recognition that they deserved.
Yeah, I mean, I've never I don't think I've heard of them. Like, until it was mentioned to me, I don't think I knew about them even. So I don't know how many of you don't know about the Night Witches.
I've never heard of them.
And I mean, I consider myself fairly well-read, fairly...
Oh, no, you're always talking about women and their accomplishments, especially their less known accomplishments.
I mean, I try to stay, but I am very excited because I did not know about the Night Witches. But keep going because I want to know more.
So they became quite the mystique in the German Nazi culture. And so the Germans held two beliefs about these so-called Night Witches and their success. And the first was that all of them were a batch of criminals, like they had to have been criminals who were masters at stealing, and that they were sent to the front line as punishment, which, kind of carries a grain of truth because they were given these like suicide mission planes, but they weren't criminals and they were not sent to the front lines as punishment. And the second belief was that they were injected with a special kind of cat-light material that enabled them to see at night because they only flew at night.
Wait, they were injected with cat-like material?
That was
what what does that look like?
This is the Germans reconciling the fact that a bunch of women were beating the crap out of them at night and beating them at their own game.
Well, of course, because they were injected with cat-like substances. That makes perfect sense. Because that would really improve your vision. And you know what? I wish I could get some cat-like.
I know, right?
Because I have terrible vision. I could never be a night witch, unfortunately. But that is hilarious.
That is
Oh
hilarious.
my God. There are criminals who are injected with cat-like substances. Okay.
Yeah, so they could see at night.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, and criminals.
Yeah.
All right. So in the 3 years of their operation between 1942 and 1945, the regiment logged 28,676 flight hours. They dropped over 3,000 tons of bombs and 26,000 incendiary shells and conducted over 30,000 combat missions.
Dang.
And these women also managed to damage or destroy several landmarks that included 17 river crossings, 9 railways, 2 railway stations, 26 warehouses, 12 fuel depots, 176 armored cars, 86 prepared firing positions, and 11 searchlights.
Oh my God. That's crazy. I mean, it's crazy, like how successful they were, and again, that we have barely heard of them.
We've barely heard of them, and they did it all with inferior, dangerous equipment.
Yeah.
Well, unfortunately, Marina Ryskova, who started that whole thing, she was the badass pilot who went to Stalin and asked to start this mission. She died in June 1943 in a plane crash while attempting to make a forced landing. And Ryskova received the first Soviet state funeral of World War II, and after the war, she became known as the Soviet Amelia Earhart, and she was honored as one of the Soviet Union's most accomplished military instructors.
Oh, wow.
And that was among men and women, so that was quite a big distinction.
Oh.
And a few of the other Sheelas that I'd like to just sort of point out from the 588th Night Bomber Regiment was Major Yevdokaya Bershenakaeva. I'm probably butchering this poor woman's name. But she was one of the few female officers in the Soviet Air Force at the time, and she played a crucial role in organizing and training the Night Witches. She was a skilled pilot, and she had flown in combat during the Spanish Civil War before she joined the Soviet Air Force. And she was known for her strict discipline and high standards, but yet at the same time for her caring and supportive leadership style. The women really looked up to her.
Yeah.
Bershenakaya remained with the Soviet Air Force after the war. She rose to the rank of lieutenant colonel before retiring in 1959. She eventually died of a heart attack in 1982 at the age of 69.
Wow. I wonder if there are some interviews out there with her. There must be, right?
There must be. I think some of these women stood out, and although they were all amazing, brave, badass women, some of the ones who kind of rose in their leadership must have some. There was a book written about them.
I'm sure there's more than one book. I'm sure there's got to be. I'm sure like you can look them up and there's information out there. But I would love to know. Hear an interview or
I did a pretty big search, and I have to say that a lot of the materials I found were repetitious. I kept finding the same materials. I think that given who they were in this war and what they were able to accomplish, I think that more should have been made of them, and they should have gotten a lot more recognition than they
April, I think this should be your
received.
next book.
Maybe.
I think so. Yeah.
So I want to tell you about Nadezhda Popova. Is today also considered one of the most famous night witches. Popova was a commander who flew a total of 852 missions, one night flying out 18 different times, and that was the record set for the 588th Night Bomber Regiment.
Can you imagine flying out 18 times
She was like
in one night?
Yeah. She was most famous for her success under fire. Popova returned alive one night after a mission with 42 bullet holes in her plane, her map, and holes in her helmet. Popova passed away in 2013 at the ripe old age of 91. She left many years of recounting all of her adventures.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
That is amazing. Did the night witches have family? Like, did they have children? Like,
That I'm not sure of, but I can tell you this. There were over 260 women who served in the squadron, and 32 of them died. You were asking how many were
okay,
killed.
okay.
And out of 260, 32 was a reasonably low number, especially given the poor equipment and poor support that they got.
yeah.
They passed away from a variety of causes involving everything from tuberculosis to plane crashes and other combat-related deaths. There were 23 women from the squadron who were given the title of Hero of the Soviet Union. 2 of them were given the Hero of the Russian Federation, and one of the women was awarded the Hero of Kazakhstan Award.
Wow. Wow, wow, wow.
Their last flight took place on May 4th, 1945, when the Night Witches flew within 60 kilometers of Berlin. 3 days later, the Germans officially surrendered.
Wow.
During World War II, the squadron was the most highly decorated unit of the Soviet Air Force.
Oh my gosh. That is crazy. That's
Yes,
amazing.
That is crazy. But wait, there's more.
Okay.
The squadron known as the Night Witches was disbanded 6 months after the war was over, and there was a huge Victory Day parade that was planned to take place in Moscow. And after being the most highly decorated unit in the Soviet Air Force, the Night Witches squadron was not included in the celebration. It was determined their planes would be too slow for them to participate.
Oh my God. Like, that is, oh my God.
Yeah, can't make it up.
No, you can't. After all that. Oh my God. That's insane.
And those are our Sheelas.
Oh my, I have so many questions. In fact, I
hope I can answer them.
No, I feel bad because as you were chatting, I have like so many questions that I had my phone in airplane mode, so it wouldn't, and of course I forgot I turned it on and it went beep, 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 beep. So I apologize for that, but like I suddenly was like, oh my God, did they have any children? And there's not a lot, you're right, there's not a lot, it says
They were
some of
pretty
the night
young.
witches had families, it said. Okay, and then this one says that Popova married a fellow fighter pilot and became a flight instructor and had a son who became a general in the Air Force. So that, but yeah, this is crazy.
There's a surprisingly small amount of information about them given the magnitude of their missions and how successful they were.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
I'm going to see if Ellery wants to be a night witch for Halloween this year.
I could just see her friend saying, "And what are you?"
I'm a night witch.
I'm a Soviet air fighter in World War II, known as Night Witch. Yeah, that'll give her a lot of popularity, I'm sure.
I think that's pretty. I think that's pretty awesome.
They're pretty amazing women.
I do think that'd be a pretty awesome Halloween costume. I do. Maybe I'll be. I don't like to dress up for Halloween.
I don't either.
I don't know what it is. I've never. I don't. I know that's really bad, but
I know.
And people were really surprised with me too. They're like, "Why you see?" But I dress up every day. Why don't I?
That's true.
Why do I have to dress up for Halloween?
You do. You
But
dress up every day.
I think I've decided if I have to dress up for Halloween for any reason, that is who
You're going to be a night witch.
I'm going to be a night witch.
All right.
I think that would be pretty badass.
Don't forget, you need male boots because the night witches didn't have.
And then I need to stuff them with bed sheets.
Yes.
Specifically. Yeah, I think you said bed sheets.
Bed sheets. That was, yes, specifically.
I'm assuming they tore them up first and then shoved them. I don't know. But, I want to say, too, for people listening, maybe somebody in your family, I don't know, you know what I mean? Like,
is a night witch.
Yeah. I just saw that none of them are none of them are living, obviously. It's been a while.
Yeah.
But if you have, like, any connection to a night witch, we would love to talk to you on it.
Yeah, please reach out.
Yeah, we would love to hear your story or what you heard. And, I mean, this is just fascinating. Absolutely fascinating.
It is.
And, wow. I do have a lot of questions. I feel like after this episode, I'm just going to have to sit here for, like, a half hour and just look up a bunch of stuff, which you said it's probably not even there because, like...
Yeah. We can have a part 2 if we can get more answers to some of the questions.
Yeah.
And certainly if you have any questions, listeners, please let us know. We would certainly be happy to air it. But I do have to say there's just a surprisingly thin amount of information about them.
Right. And April and I, at this point, our podcast is still new.
Yeah.
Novice.
Yeah.
So we are doing all of our own research, which
yes.
which takes a lot of time.
It does.
I have to say I really am enjoying it. I feel very intellectually stimulated. I feel like I'm back in college, like writing a paper almost. You know what I mean? And and I have to say, I used to write papers for cash during college.
Did you really?
Yeah, I gave haircuts to boys, and I wrote papers. But I'm really enjoying that aspect of it. But, I don't know. Maybe as we grow and become, more successful, we'll have people who help us with research too.
That would be great.
Although I don't want them to take too much of that away because, like I said, I kind of love it.
Yeah, it is fun.
But it's been lovely. Oh my gosh, April, thank you for enlightening us today.
Thank you, Dana, for recommending.
I believe it was Dana. Yeah, thank you. And also we're really grateful to Dana for our editing.
Yes, she's amazing.
She's been helping with our editing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we are very delighted that you tuned in today, that you listened. We're very excited to share more. And
until next
time, be well. Thanks for listening, and keep listening.
Sheela.
Please keep listening. All right. Thanks, everybody. Bye.